Hey guys, if you love QF's content on our free Sundays and Thursday sessions, then please visit our Patreon page in the description and sub to the Black Kluge tier or higher for full access to not only our bonus weekly Tuesday night shows and the alternate Sunday shows you've been missing, but also to the exclusive episodes not available to the lower tiers. It's roughly the price of one coffee a month, and nobody at Starbucks will make you laugh like we do for that kind of scratch. In addition, when you sub to the Black Kluge tier, you'll get 2 weeks advance access to each Thursday session on Patreon before it makes it to YouTube.
E-world and the hip-hop world and so on, they'll drop these things, and we've never done a drop. Good morning, Bryce.
How many?
Are you off to school? That's my son, Bryce. Are you going to school? Dude, we just played the new song on Howard. Thank you.
Let me see that kid. Where is he? Come here,
say
Bryce.
Hi to Howard. Howard wants to say hi.
Hey, Bryce.
Bryce. Can you see Howard?
You're a good-looking kid.
He's saying you're a good-looking kid. Thanks, Howard.
Hey, can't hear you.
You're a good-looking
kid. Good morning, Robin.
Dude.
Also. Morning, Robin.
Let me take a look. Wow, the whole band is there. Look at that band.
We're in for a treat.
Good-looking boys. Look at that band.
What is it?
Richard, what's going on in your asshole?
Well, I don't turn around and look at my asshole very much. So
Unfortunately, I do.
This was news to me.
Did you see it? Because we're, like Mehmet was telling me, he's trying to find a magnetic fish that'll go in Richard's asshole.
Sal's face was like right down there, and he goes, "Oh!" Like he freaked out when he saw it.
Let me see your asshole.
Romantic comedy.
That's right, Robin. You and I love romantic. I'll watch two gay guys fall in love. What the fuck? I love that shit. Yeah, why not? I think it's great. I wish it was more graphic.
Oh, I must have blocked that out.
It was kind of like this thick. I didn't block it out. I always check out guys' penises.
Average OnlyFans account. I found a website that said it was like $7 is what the average OnlyFans subscription is, and this is $40. That's more than like any streaming service. So it's a monthly recurring thing. That's crazy.
$40. You should at least see the inside of his asshole, not just the ass cheeks.
Oh, sure.
No, you're right. And the other thing.
But I did. I got through it. I'm not.
You soldier on.
I'm masculine as all hell, ladies.
Like a troop.
All that shit I did back then.
Did your friends ever jizz on you?
No, it was so. Oh my God, this is so gross.
In Jersey.
Is that what you wear, Nick? Magnums? Is that your brand?
Oh, I think that.
Be honest. Seriously.
That is the one I prefer.
You're something else. Those are the ones I prefer. You prefer them because you're so fucking big down there. Jesus. Magnum is for guys who are extraordinarily big.
I'll know what you want me to do.
I mean, I can't imagine, with your 9 inches, I can't imagine any woman ever leaving you. Honestly, it's amazing.
I do get...
Welcome, ladies and gents, to QF, a podcast about Howard Stern. I'm your host, Phil Moore, a.k.a. Jim Fix, and with me, we're properly recording now, and that was my fault because we already tried this one pass and had a really good episode, is Mr. Wayne. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good to be back to try it again.
Yeah, it was my bad. It was Skype. I mean, I must have done it myself, but it said it was recording and it wasn't.
Right.
And we're going to be moving on from Skype soon because that's going the way of the dinosaur, just like 8-tracks. But the episode in question, guys, I did make mention of it in a previous episode that you guys heard. But we're going to try it again. Gary Lewis from Gary Lewis and the Playboys, aka the son of Jerry Lewis. The hey lady.
Yeah.
That's Jerry Lewis.
Hey lady boy.
He was
in Howard's case.
Gary Lewis and the Playboys had a bunch of hits in the in the 60s, and he got drafted and got sent to, I think, Korea. I don't know if it was Vietnam. I guess it was Vietnam because he wouldn't have been here in combat in Korea at the time. But he said, and he says in the interview, he heard something, like he didn't. He was in the shit, but not for a long time. It's a great story. This is where his half sister comes in, and he has supplied his DNA to give her the proof she needs that she's Jerry Lewis's illegitimate daughter.
And if you could see what she looks like, there's no question.
Oh yeah, and then she passed away in the last 5 years or so, but she was basically a bag lady in the States, and this her story is just incredibly sad, but it just paints more of a picture of Jerry Lewis as a total asshole, like a true talent, but a complete asshole where this stuff is concerned. Can you think of Wayne offhand in the celeb world, other people who had illegitimate kids and just wouldn't talk about it? I think Carson had a
Yeah,
black or half
right.
black granddaughter that he wouldn't address.
Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, let me think who had kids on the outskirts that just wouldn't acknowledge them. I have to think about that one. We'll probably come up with someone as we get going.
Yeah, and we're not talking about guys that had kids they didn't know about,
Right.
or they turned up after a long time. That happened to a friend of mine actually. A 25-year-old woman showed up on his door. He's married with a couple of kids. He's already been married. This isn't one of his kids that he knew about. He found out that he'd had a one-night stand with somebody a long time ago. She had a kid, and she kept the kid. She kept the kid basically, and she was a spitting image of him. And so he's
It
like, I
wasn't.
can't even bother to deny this one. It's obviously true.
I heard a story on Bennington that he knew about a guy that had two had an illegitimate kid and kept they both had the same name. So he named the kid the one that they knew about
Right.
had the same name as the other one that was hidden
That's
away.
that's
Yeah, that's
creepy.
weird. But
Yeah,
wasn't Liv Tyler, wasn't she didn't for the longest time
perfect
she didn't
example.
know. Right.
Yeah, she thought Todd Rundgren was
Right.
actually her dad, like BB Buell was her mom, but
Yeah.
they hid the paternity. But it's clear she was Steven Tyler's kid because she looks like him.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
yeah,
But yeah, that's the first one that came to mind.
yeah. That's a good example because I can't think of too many. The Milton Berle has a couple of he wrote an autobiography in like 75, I think. And in it, he says he met his illegitimate kid at a Hollywood party. The kid doesn't know that he's his father. He ended up being a Hollywood producer and is probably dead now. But he did meet him, and he said he's quite big. He was quite big in the business then, but the kid never found out, and he took it to the grave with him.
Yeah, all the horror stories seem to be coming out about Milton Berle left and right now. And
He was a coxman. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know what the horror stories would be aside from him being wanting to show his dick to everybody. But he wasn't like Jerry Lewis who actually slept with pretty much every one of his leading ladies.
well, the other one that was that I hear horror stories about is Bob Hope. I think there's a book about like how he was in some kind of weird underground kind of sex ring kind of thing that two girls put out. Like I vaguely remember that back. I think the girl was on the Art Bell show, the conspiracy
Sure.
show, UFOs and Bigfoot and all that. But I think she was on there, and I had bookmarked it in Amazon, but never went back to buy the book. But it's just something that was interesting because she was telling all kinds of horror stories about Bob Hope.
Well, think about it. Hope and Crosby used to be the big comedy team, right? In the movies, especially.
Yeah.
Bing Crosby later on came out. He was infamous for beating his children.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah, like just a complete shithead. Hope was just a hopeless womanizer, and between the two of them, just awful, awful people in the business.
Yeah, it's like I guess when you start getting people kissing your ass in Hollywood, it just turns into that, I guess. With like now
Unfortunately,
there's the rumors about Tom Hanks and everything else, and just sooner or later, all the Mr. Nice guys seem to go down in the end.
well, apparently there's a blind. I don't know if we read it, but Tom Hanks is apparently getting divorced from his wife.
Oh, interesting. I
And that's
didn't hear
big,
that one.
and that's big, big, big news. And I don't know what would precipitate it, to be honest with you. If it wasn't, I mean, the first thing
Did he?
people would go is, "Yeah, exactly, Epstein, Epstein." But everybody wants to say that. But I mean, it could be
Yeah,
something very, it could be something as boring as they just grew apart, which is pretty standard. That's like divorce
yeah.
101 for a lot of couples. Anyway, guys, we'll go right into it.
Here he is, Gary Lewis of Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and Susan Lewis, who wrote the book Jerry's Kid, the Susan Lewis story. And the story's now, there you go. There he is. Look at that. Gary Lewis of the famous Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
Hello there.
And there's Susan Lewis, who looks like a dead ringer of Jerry.
He kind of looks like Elephant Boy a bit.
You mentioned
kind
that,
of
yeah.
Yeah, a cross between Elephant Boy and what's his name, Rockstar here, John the Stutterer.
He doesn't. Yeah, you're right, John, especially John the Stutterer. And Gary Lewis had a bit of a drug problem at some point. Incidentally, guys, he had an interesting go of it. But you know what the funny thing about him and his career was? Do you know that his mother Patty, Jerry's wife, was the one that bankrolled the band and not Jerry?
No, I didn't know that.
She got him. She got she paid for the instruments and stuff.
Wow.
Because
So
they felt that Jerry wouldn't help at all.
Wow. So, wow, that came out of her half of the money, huh? Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, he really did.
When they were together when it happened, when they broke big.
He really did nothing to help him at all.
No, not at all. And that's the opposite of what, like his parents, Jerry's parents were very supportive of him, but he just didn't see a lot of them because they were they were performers, but he was raised by his grandmother, who he held like in high esteem. And he always said that my dad was, everything you've seen me do, my dad was better. He was a better singer, better actor, better everything. All you're hearing from me is my impression of my father. But he never, he never wanted to be he just wanted to provide for his family. He didn't want to be a big star.
The one that I always hear good stuff about is Frank Sinatra Jr. Like I always hear that. Yeah, I hear good stuff about him. That people that meet him and said that he was cool to hang out with and very very easygoing and stuff. So it wasn't like that went to his head.
One of my favorite jokes.
His father was.
He got kidnapped one time. They kidnapped Sinatra Senior. So they kidnapped Junior to blackmail to get money from ransom from Senior. And Senior told a joke that you know why they gave him up? they heard him singing in the trunk. I love that one.
Jerry. So let's be honest. How you doing?
Somebody give her a mic.
We're going to get you all mic'd up.
All right.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Howard.
Your father must be so pissed at you.
I always, ever since I did this whole DNA thing, I thought he was going to look at it as like a betrayal.
Did he?
I don't know.
You're not talking to him?
I haven't spoken to him since last Father's Day.
Oh.
Wow.
And, the relationship's a little strained for various reasons. But as far as...
What are the reasons? I mean, here's the way I look at it. My dad is Jerry Lewis.
Now, the other thing is Gary looks more like actually Geddy Lee or somebody. He doesn't look anything like Jerry at all.
Yeah,
whereas,
that's another one. So if you think of throw Geddy Lee, Elephant Boy, and John the Stutterer in the mix,
there's a DNA.
You got Jerry. Yeah.
There's a DNA potpourri for you guys.
I've always said this to you. I just kiss his ass, and then get all that inheritance. The guy's got to be worth. What do you think your dad's worth? I mean, I don't know. Is that such a crazy plan?
I know. I should have just played the game, I guess.
Why not, though?
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably pretty well set from Gary Lewis and the Playboys, I imagine. I don't know. Are you?
Yeah. Things are good.
Things are good. You don't need your dad's money.
No.
You got enough money. You still tour?
Yep.
Well, this is Howard. This is Howard back when he still could do an interview because he was actually talking about things he really cared about, money.
Right. Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah.
And I'd kiss my dad. Like, that's so telling. I'd kiss my dad's ass to get the inheritance. Of course he would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Still
he was
touring.
like he wanted to get every penny out of Ben and Ray. He didn't want his sister to even get half.
No.
And with all his money, he was like disappointed that she was getting the house or something. Wasn't that the issue?
She got it. She got the house in the will, and I'm thinking to myself, obviously. Ben knows Howard's taken care of. He's fine.
Yeah.
He knows that Ellen could use the money. She could use the house as a, something, or give it to the kids. That makes more sense. And I think on another note, they knew that if they gave it to Howard, he wouldn't be giving Ellen anything. And he's not going to be helping her or her kids at all. So why give it to that asshole?
And he has three different places: Florida, Chimney Manor, and the Wig Foundation building.
Yeah, it's they can never have enough, these fucking scumbags.
Still touring.
You still get some sort of publishing?
Get publishing, writers,
right.
artist royalties. Yeah, everything
Beautiful.
still.
So you make a good living?
Sure.
Where you living now?
I live south of Rochester, New York.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
And
out in the country, beautiful.
Wife, kids, what's going on?
Well, between me and my wife, we've got 4 kids, 6 grandkids.
So, are you angry with Jerry?
No, I'm not mad at him at all.
You're not?
No, not at all.
Does he see you as like a pain in the ass or something?
I'm not really sure what he thinks. Well, probably now.
Yeah, he was so proud of you. You know, it's weird. We were talking about narcissism. Don't you think Jerry got really proud of you when you became the great Gary Lewis and the Playboys and you were...
All right, so, when Howard asked him, he's like, did your father see you as a pain in the ass? Well, I remember hearing a story that Jerry set up like a little office in his bathroom, and he'd go and sit on the bowl and do stuff to try to hide away from the kids. Just to get away from them.
Do you know, this is the bitch of it. Since we did since we tried the first time to record this, I looked up to see if I could find the original, the King of Comedy book that was released mid '90s, in '96 or so. It wasn't authorized, so Jerry wasn't going to contribute to this thing. But it probably told a pretty balanced picture of what it was like with the kids. And I tried to find, it's on the archive, but somebody in Jerry's company, I'm sure, made them take it down. There was a scanned copy of it, so I'd have to find a hardcover or a softcover version and order it through eBay or something, or Amazon, because maybe it's out of print. But because if you're going to get autobiography from Jerry, it's not going to tell the truth.
Well, the reason that I remember that story is because I heard Howard tell it, and it was kind of I think
that sounded like his projection completely, and it was nothing to do with Jerry.
No, I think that it gave him the idea to put make his little door lock with him and Ralphie down in the basement. And that's kind of where it was along the lines of that, in that context that he had spoken about the bathroom thing.
Well, then it makes perfect sense that he would do that, but he just used it as an excuse for himself, right. And they are 2 peas in a pod in terms of when they get home, they're not expected to, don't expect me to spend time with the kids.
It always, I always pictured in my mind remember in Diamonds Are Forever, Willard White, and he had that little office in the bathroom, and James Bond ends up coming down and landing on the toilet seat. And then there's
which is the
cameras.
Control, which is also the control throne, essentially.
Yeah, for the casino, and it had all these monitors in front of him.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's probably not too far off from the truth. So, and I think I told again in the original recording, one of the sons went on, I think it was Inside Edition or whatever, and said that when Jerry came home, there was a bell that we all had to show up and stand at attention basically and be there and welcome him home, something like that. But he said eventually when we heard that bell, we all started running away because we didn't want to have anything to do with him when he got home, because he was going to be he was horrible. He was just going to start yelling and screaming at people.
Was that like Mary Poppins or one of those movies where I remember the father had a I guess they call it a Bosun whistle, and the kids had to line up.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Was it the Trap
you're
Family?
Talking it was a Von Trapp family. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, the Trap Family. Yeah.
Ex-military, right?
Yeah. Okay, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
You were the #1 recording artist.
Yeah.
But do you think he didn't step in to try to keep you from going to Vietnam because he couldn't handle you being so famous?
Well, I have thought that, that maybe there was a little competition type thing.
Right.
But I don't know why. I mean, we do 2 totally different things.
Yeah, but, it's hard to share that spotlight.
Correct.
I think there's probably some truth to that, because by the time Gary Lewis and the Playboys were breaking big, Jerry Lewis himself was not doing very well at all. His kind of his big star was kind of fading over, and there infamously he was given a boatload of money. He'll lie every time he tells the story of how much money he was given to make his own show, like a Tonight Show type show, and it was horrendously bad. Jerry, and it was super expensive to produce. It was almost like the Chevy Chase show, how he had full editing control, full producer direction, everything, and he got all kinds of stuff installed, and it was just a bomb.
I didn't even know anything about that. What time period was that? Like 70s?
60s, like 60. I'm going to say 66, around when this is happening for Jerry Lewis.
Right, I was just being born. Yeah, I was just born, so.
Yeah, no, it died a horrible death, and it was infamously like he made out all right. I'm sure he made all kinds of money off of it because that would be like NBC. I think it was NBC. I'd have to look it up.
I
But
thought Jerry. I mean, man, I thought Jerry was a riot up until maybe second grade, and then I kind of was like, oh, this is kind of stupid. But
well,
no, I thought he was the funniest thing going. I love the telethons and all that.
well, I always made it a point to watch the telethon when I was a kid because you never knew who was going to be on next, right? It was always
Right.
like a kind of and everybody a who's who of show business would be on there.
Yeah, those guys were cool, lad, too. Even when I was a kid, I was like, oh, that's what I want to be like them when I grow up. And that between that and the other thing I always I wanted to join the Playboy Club in Boston.
Oh, there
So
was
I'm going
one.
to join that. Yeah, and I remember I know exactly where it was, and we used to drive if we went into the city and we saw it. It was like they had a huge wall that had a big Playboy thing on it, and I
Right.
knew what went on in there and stuff. And I was like, I'm joining that. And I think they closed it like right before I turned 21 or something. Actually, it wasn't even there when I was going to the city. I think they had closed it maybe 2
Yeah.
years before.
How long? When would it have closed? Do you think? What year?
I'd say maybe around 1980, maybe 80, 81.
Yeah, that's about right. Because
Yeah.
there was one in Jersey, there was one obviously in New York, and I mean they branched them out, but with varying degrees of success. But ultimately, if they were going to sell them, they kind of had to sell them with Hugh installed, and he couldn't be at all of them.
Well, I remember seeing James Bond with the little Playboy card. I'm like, oh, if he's in that, I want in. And then when I
Yeah.
found out what it was, I was like, and it was a lot more tame than what I had in my mind going on.
Right.
But
It wasn't.
still,
It
it would have
wasn't
been
Plato's
cool.
Retreat.
No, it wasn't even a strip club. It was just,
No.
just drink and
Dinner.
have a meal and see girls walk around in bunny suits.
Pretty much. Yeah, and have booze, just a bar, open bar.
Yeah.
Correct. So that could be a reason. But as far as the going into the Army is concerned, I believe that I had the foresight to realize that if I used him to help me get out of it, it wouldn't be good for me later on.
I see.
And that's the way I looked at it.
So you didn't go to your dad. You didn't ask him to help you get out of Vietnam or anything. And then who even knows if he could have at that point?
That's right. I have no idea. All that was going through my head at the time was Elvis went in, he did it, I can do it.
Yeah, but Elvis did it a different way. Did you see combat?
No. Well, no, I heard it though.
You were in Vietnam, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What?
I seem to recall it said he was stationed in Korea, but he might have been there initially and then it went over. But if he only did about 3 months, I think that means clearly he got some preferential treatment and didn't have to do the full whack. So maybe Jerry pulled some strings to make it short.
Well, when Elvis went in, was he he was in Germany. He got stationed in Germany.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I know a lot of people that went in, if they were musically inclined, they'd put them in, USO or something like that. And they do be in bands, especially during World War II.
Yeah, they'd be stuck at an army base. They were in, I can't remember exactly, but you're right. He did 2 years in Germany and that was it. And some of the stories about when they were in Germany were told by the Memphis Mafia were fantastic. But about how Elvis was he was just a hound, it didn't matter what, and that's of course where he met Priscilla when he was in Germany.
Well, I mean, Elvis was so high profile that he had to go just for the morale of the country.
Yes, and he couldn't be seen to not be able to, to shirk responsibility.
And he was never the same after that until the comeback thing. But that it was a whole different Elvis that came back, and it was too gimmicky, and that's when I didn't take him serious anymore. But I mean, it's the same thing with Korean the South Korean boy bands. As soon as the first one goes into the military, because they have to do their service over there, and that's kind of the end of it. With happened to Big Bang and BTS, and they never really come back as strong. So the life expectancy for those boy bands in South Korea is
it's less than
5
zero.
years.
Yeah, but that's also works out perfectly because they have a reason to dissolve it so that they don't have to sink money into a band that's over the hill now.
Well, they do that with they did that with the women too.
Yeah,
they did it with 21 became Blackpink, and even the songs that were going to be for 21 went to Blackpink. That's how convoluted it is. It's like a boot camp. It's pretty sad, actually.
It is if you look into the story behind it.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
For 3 months in 1968.
Scary as hell, right?
Oh yeah, tremendously scary. You know, I actually thought that well, I better be on my toes, so I think I'll stop drinking.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's scary. How long were you in the military?
2 years.
2 years, and that derailed your career in a sense. I mean, you were riding the top of the charts.
It was over when I came back because the music changed over to Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
While I was in the service, and my producer, Snuffy Garrett, says, "Sorry to tell you this, but there's no more market for you."
But the music industry does change that fast. It kind of does.
Yeah, it was just this. It was the same for all the British invasion bands, unless they adapted. Like the Stones changed, the Beatles changed, of course.
Yeah.
But like Dave Clark 5, they had a really strong 2 years maybe, or a year and a half, and then they just sort of dissolved.
Well, there were tons. There was like Paul Revere and the Raiders, and
all
those kind of groups. Yeah, they all with all the poppy stuff, because everything turned dark after Vietnam. And by the end of the 60s, everything was like a lot darker sound.
Yep.
More psychedelic and the drugs.
Yep.
It does change that fast. So I just stayed out of it until the middle 80s when this agent from Indiana called me and said, "I can book you 60 to 100 dates a year. 60s are coming back."
Wow.
I said, "Well, great. If you can do it, I'll play."
Right. So it's really kind
What
of...
did you do in that downtime?
I bought a music store in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles and sold guitars and drums and gave lessons on both.
Huh.
That's what I did.
You never went to the old man for money, never said, "Hey, Dad, come on, help me out."
No.
I remember a couple of years ago, Robin and I were watching on the telethon.
Yeah.
You were on the Jerry Lewis telethon, so things were good for a while, I guess.
Oh yeah, things are always cool. I mean, you know, we can have strained periods of time, but you know, it's always actually very cool as long as I realize that I've got to stop trying to figure out how my dad thinks.
Right. What do you mean?
Well, because I never know how he's going to be from minute to minute.
And that's what I understood about Jerry Lewis. He was volatile. Like he could be, you know, very gregarious and very just kind and fun-hearted, whatever. And then other times really dark and unpredictable. And that's because it's because the guy was fucked up. I mean, no real childhood. He got left back, massive star, but wasn't making really the money he should have been. That, you know, the money he was making that he'd make as a producer and owner of his own stuff, he was making for execs, and he probably felt like, fuck them. I'm the one writing the bits. I'm the one doing all this, and they're making most of the money.
Well, a friend of mine, her father was like that he could, you know, had weird swings, and she kind of had a little bit of it, well, a lot of bit of it too, now that I think of it. But she told me one thing, and this is really creepy. She's told me that her father was a cross between Sling Blade. He could be like Sling Blade, but also Frank Booth from Blue Velvet, you know, the villain from Blue Velvet. But imagine that going from like a Sling Blade kind of just like, and then to like, fucking look at me, you know, and just like flying off the wall.
I think Jerry was complex in a lot of ways and probably needed to be diagnosed with something, but his narcissism would not allow him to go to a psychiatrist maybe and say, look, this is what you need to balance yourself out. He also had a horrible addiction to pain pills after a while, just like Chevy Chase, and had to wean himself off them.
Yeah, I had heard that there was a parade up in Lowell, Lowell, Massachusetts, and it was Jerry Lewis and Ed McMahon. They were on the float, and the crowd was going nuts for Ed because he's like, I don't know if he's a local guy, but everybody was going nuts for Ed, and Jerry was kind of pissed because it was, you know, everybody's going Ed, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked Alexa, and Alexa said that Ed McMahon was raised in Lowell, Massachusetts. So that's what the link is.
Yeah, he was born in Michigan, but apparently he made his bones growing up in in Lowell, Mass. But he was, and funny, he had his fingers in so many pies. The America was it called Sweepstakes?
Oh yeah, the Publishers Clearinghouse.
Publishers Clearinghouse, you got it.
Yeah.
Star Search, America's Bloopers and Funniest Home Videos, and then The Tonight Show. He parlayed everything into that. But imagine, and that's the key thing. Whatever money he was making on The Tonight Show, and I'm sure he was paid handsomely because he was on air. And he actually had things to say, even though it was really just to be a second banana. Carson allowed him to do all these other things.
Yeah, did you watch the Gary Shandling show? The one with Hank. Where Wiggy ripped off the "Hey now," all that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but it was like such a good parody of Ed, with like "Hey-oh" and all that stuff. But he was great. I always liked him when I was a kid. I thought he was great.
Yeah, he was, and but I just found it funny that Howard, used to bitch about Carson and stuff, but Carson would allow Ed McMahon to make all this money doing other things, but Howard would never allow anybody to make money off of the show.
No, and the other thing is, Howard didn't like Ed either. He used to say he was a big load, and that he did nothing but just sit on a couch and laugh, and
till he had him on the show multiple times.
Yeah, and he's more than that.
Yeah,
it all changes so fast.
Is that an illness?
I don't know.
No, but is that mental illness?
I don't know. I don't think it is.
Is he moody? Is it up and down? Is it?
Yeah.
It's because he's such a big star, because he's Jerry Lewis, that, in other words, he's in such an unreal world where people love and adore him.
And cater to his every whim.
That as a child, you're not really allowed to be a child. You've got to be another parent to him and cater to him and make sure that he is happy at all times.
That's projection 100%. We talked about it again the first time. That's him. How he expects to be treated and expected to be treated by his own kids and his wife.
Yeah. And he's really no different than Jerry. It just, he did it in a different way.
Right. And he's just not nearly as talented as Jerry was.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, when you guys, a lot of people who don't, because Jerry Lewis, let's be honest, I mean, it's a bygone era, and I shouldn't know this either because it was before my time, but I did grow up with some, Jerry Lewis movies here and there. And of course, The Nutty Professor, Cinderfella, the Errand Boy, the Bellboy, these were all things that became, there were always Jerry Lewis films on late night at some point. During the week, you'd always find a Jerry Lewis film every now and then. And that's how I knew. But he wrote, directed, and then later on, produced. He had a hand in just about every aspect of the production.
Well, Wiggy should do the remake of Cinderfella. It would give him an excuse to get in drag again.
No kidding. Fuck, that would be perfect.
He missed his calling for that one, the remake of Cinderfella.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate description?
Sure, absolutely. It was very rough growing up because he was always in total control of every situation, and we were not allowed to show any emotion but happiness.
Right.
Wow, that's rough.
Which is kind of a drag,
In other words, what right do you have to be unhappy? You're Jerry Lewis's son. This is the greatest thing. Don't tell me your problems. I have all the problems, not you.
Yeah.
That's interesting because Howard would, even though he would probably not insist on everybody be happy because he's a miserable fuck, it would be more along the lines of don't talk to anybody about the family. Don't ever betray what goes on behind closed doors. So there's that level of control.
Yeah, well, the money gets shut off.
Yep.
But I try to put myself in my dad's place every now and then too. If every single day of your life, in your career, you are constantly knocked and you're taking shots from the press every single day of your life, that's got to harden you
I guess
a little bit.
Yeah, but maybe with your kid, you would be different. You would take some solace in knowing, hey, it's my son, and there's a peaceful part of my life.
There's kind of a parallel between him and what's her name? The oldest daughter, Emily Stern, right? That's the oldest one, right?
She's the oldest. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like I wonder if she kind of steers clear, to keep the money rolling in.
Oh, certainly she does.
So it's like she's in the same position as him. Ashley is the baby, so I don't think she probably didn't know any better than any of it. But that's a whole bad.
Deborah played it the smartest.
Right. Yeah. Deborah just stayed out of the whole thing, and she's probably the most level out of all of them.
I'd say so. And being a middle child anyway, they say is you become the peace bringer in the family, and it's most of the time pretty true.
Oh yeah, I know when my girlfriends and usually they're the ones that end up taking care of the parents and stuff in the end also.
and not really falling out with any of the siblings because they know they're
Right.
they're in the middle. They have to sort of
Right.
peace negotiation. That's not the same in my family. Like my brother's the middle one, but he's not. He and my sister don't have the greatest relationship. Not that they're enemies or anything, but they just were cats and dogs, growing up. But I got along with both of them. So when I get in the room, I'm the peace bringer, kind of thing. So, but they're fine. But at the same time, it's not always true that the middle child is the peace bringer.
I just that's what I've just seen from my experience, especially in Asian people's families.
Yeah.
But I see that's the kind of thing. Usually the middle child's the one that ends up taking care of the parents, and from what I've seen from it, in my family it's just me and my sister, so there's only just two of us, so I never dealt with any of that.
It's funny. One of my friends, like her parents are both mainland Chinese, but they emigrated to Canada sometime in the 70s, I think, late 70s. And so she and all of her siblings, well, she was born in China, but most of her siblings were all born in Canada. She's one of like 8 girls. And you might think like that the daughter had like this, that dad had it tough with like 9 women in the house and a mother-in-law, like 10 women in the house and him. But the way she explained it, she said, no, we all loved that. We were all daddy's little girls. So he had us like wrapped around his finger, and we all took care of both of them, and he couldn't have had it any better.
Well, that's kind of interesting too, because with not having any sons, like the pressure on the guy for not having any sons.
Yeah, and I asked her if that was an issue, like because they were trying for the son constantly, and the last two were twin girls, and that was fun. And then she laughed. She said that was like God saying, "Enough. You want more guys? I'm going to give you triplets, girls next. If you keep trying, just stop it." And he eventually said, "I don't care that I don't have any sons. This is fine."
That happened to the girl who was my assistant, and her last kid was their son.
Yeah.
And actually, he just went into the military, and he's going to be over in South Korea. But she finally got lucky, and she's like, "That's it. The garage is closed. No more."
Well,
but it was funny because we kept every time it was girls.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I said every time was girls until finally she had the son.
Yeah, the last chance.
There's a peaceful part of my life.
So Susan's story is
first of all, just a woman, because I
love how Howard we didn't play it because it's an extra 5 minutes, but before he brings her in, her name is Susan, spelled Suzan, but he keeps calling her Suzanne.
Yeah,
this is 16, 17 years later, he can't get names. Like he just can't be bothered to fucking learn what a name is.
Okay, we don't need to take the results.
No, she looks exactly like Jerry Lewis. There's no question.
That's Jerry Lewis's kid, right?
So
Gary, so did him.
By the way, Gary.
Test Gary.
I know. I'm not sure Gary is Jerry Lewis's kid. Susan is definitely Jerry Lewis's kid.
I have a question about Gary.
I don't know, but Gary.
Yeah, she's kind of cute. She reminds me of that girl that was remember the girl that was after John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever.
Annette.
The one.
Annette.
Yeah. The girl in
the chubby one.
She kind of reminds me. She got the body like that. Her face is kind of like that, but she's not ugly. She's kind of cute.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't think Jerry Lewis on a woman's face would be attractive, it's not a physically aesthetic, like a pleasing aesthetic, but the energy she seems to be putting out. Like when she gets talking, you guys will hear she's very positive minded, and it's a breath of fresh air.
And she's just looks like she's very up and peppy girl. Like the one that like scared me off was when I found out that Wally George was the father of
Rebecca De Mornay.
Rebecca from Risky Business.
Yeah.
And then after that, because I thought she was really hot in Risky Business.
Right.
And then when I saw it, now all I could see was Wally George. The same with Lisa Marie Presley. All I could ever see is Elvis. It's like if you went out with her, you'd be looking at Elvis all night.
There's some girls like that. Like I was trying to think of the ugliest kids in show business, and it's probably Bruce Willis and Demi Moore's kids. That Rumor Willis, she was hit with she hit the wall when she was born, and it was just a bad look. And that's unfortunate DNA. That's just that's when you don't luck out, because Bruce doesn't look like a bad guy, and Demi Moore was one of the hottest women out there. Did you know that she was up for the lead in Flashdance? Demi Moore.
Who was? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. It was Jennifer Beals, obviously, and Demi Moore and some other, I can't remember her name, Leslie something. She was from a TV show, I can't remember. And the producer, basically, he said, I want you to get all the Teamsters together, and I want you to like have them meet me outside. And so, guys, he got all the Teamsters together, and he said, guys, I want you to vote. Like, which one of these girls would you most like to fuck? And he threw the pictures of each of them, like, and then Jennifer Beals, they unanimously like hooted and hollered or whatever. He said that's how she got the part.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Demi Moore, I never liked it because she reminds me of a guy too much. There's something in her voice,
she does have a more manly kind of appeal, I suppose. But Jennifer Beals, I remember seeing her on TV when she was like in 2005, 2006, 20-something years later, and she looked hotter than ever.
Yeah, my friend, he was in New York, living in New York City when that movie was in, and he got into an elevator, and she was in an elevator, and he told me in real life she's even better than what she looks like in the movies.
Oh, far better.
Yeah.
She was also in, I think, Orange is the New Black. I think she was in a few episodes there, and she was just stunning. And it's just that's when DNA works overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is she still looking good these days? I haven't seen anything from her.
She did an interview. Let me see if I can find it. There was a Vanity Fair interview she did. There's a channel on YouTube that they interview people in monochrome, and you could see it. Hold on. Jennifer Beals interview. One of the most that's more recent. So which one is it? I'm looking specifically for the one. 2019. Well, let's try that one.
She's starring in a coming-of-age film based on the best-selling novel After. Here to tell us more, my hair queen. I'm so sorry I didn't wear it curly for you today. How'd I know? Notes, Jennifer. It's 35 years
she must be, like 50 or 60.
The leotards.
She's got it. She's older than me because she was older when Flashdance came out. I know she was older than me, so she's got to be maybe 62.
After was a piece of fan fiction that was online.
Okay, like she's made up. Clearly, you can see some of the crow's feet, but she still looks great.
I have a feeling she's going to be like a Jane Seymour that's going to just age great.
She's 61.
Okay, I was off by a year. That's good.
Yeah, she looks fucking stunning. They're still to this day. Like Helen Mirren still looks great. She's like fucking 80.
Yeah.
Yeah, for her age.
And like I said, Jane Seymour, that's another one. Still looks pretty good.
Yeah. Hot as fuck, yeah.
You know, it's amazing. Here's a woman that sits next to you. She's pining away to be identified as Jerry Lewis's kid.
Yeah.
And you, on the other hand, Jerry Lewis's kid, and you're like, Jesus Christ, I don't even want to talk to the guy. It's like, it's really...
trying to get away from him. What are you doing?
Actually, Gary is actually, I believe, Dean Martin's son.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know that. But here's the thing. Susan's story to me is remarkable.
Yeah.
So your whole childhood growing up, Susan, and hi, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi.
Hi. Your whole childhood growing up, you didn't even know you're Jerry Lewis's kid. Your mom raised you as a single mom, right?
No.
You had a dad.
I had a really wonderful stepfather, and they both were in the restaurant business, 5-star restaurants.
Did you know he was your stepfather? Well, at first, did you think
he was your real father?
It's a little more complicated than that. I knew he was my stepfather, but I knew he was my stepfather since I was 2. He couldn't have children, and he treated me better than, if it were your own. But the person I thought was my real father, who was the father of who became my half-brother, who I thought was my brother, if you can follow this.
No, I'm following you. I do follow this in some weird way.
He turned out not to be my father, but...
So your mother was, I think the way I understand the story, your mother was on her deathbed, and she admitted to you, she said, you know what, the guy you think is your biological father is not. Your actual father is the comedian Jerry Lewis, world-famous Jerry Lewis. And you're shocked.
Now, did your mother take you to Jerry Lewis movies? Did she have a...
Growing up.
Yeah.
Well, in hindsight, now I realize that, I was always watching him. I always liked him. And now I realize that's why it was always on.
Well, there are a couple of things. Obviously, there's a couple of things at play there. Second, number one, he was so omnipresent. Her mother is French, like living in France. He's revered in France. But the other thing is when people who it's been documented for for decades now, people that have been who have been left up for adoption and then somehow through happenstance meet a sibling that they didn't know was their sibling, or a parent that they didn't know was their actual parent, and they connect on such a level they can't they can't figure it out. Then it's you see why there are similarities. Obviously, it's a bit of mirroring going on there, and the appeal is, but they don't know that. For all they know, it's just, wow, we just connect because we have so much in common and blah blah blah. And they don't realize how much more they have in common.
Well, there's people out there that, that's kind of ooga booga, but they say that this like history is written into your DNA for instinction reasons. And, when cells split from way back in evolution, and also carries things like that. I know there was what happened to me is that my grandmother's funeral, and there was a girl I used to see in the hall at school. I was like, wow, she's pretty hot. And it turns out that I found out at the funeral that she was like a second cousin of mine.
Second cousin. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, it was like kind of creeped me out.
Good thing nothing happened there.
Yeah, no, just somebody I used to see in the hall and say she's pretty hot. And then when she showed up there, I'm like, that's that girl. And then my mother's like, oh, and this is she would be like your second cousin. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like thinking, oh no.
I think I told this story on the show a long time ago, but I apologize, guys, in advance. But one of my best friends, who since passed away, God bless her, she knew she had a half brother on the other side of the country, but she had never met him. She didn't know much about him, and this is pre-internet and all that stuff. So she was at a bar back home and on the East Coast of Canada, like in the Maritimes. And she met this guy, and they really hit it off, and they were just chatting away and stuff. And they go back to her place, and they were just sort of making out a little bit, like light making out. Then he drops, like he says something, and then it just a light bulb went off in her head, and like, my God, what the hell? And they figure out in short order that that's her half brother.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and it was just fluke. Like he didn't know. Like he knew she existed, like, but not her name, not anything about it, because it was a very fractious. It was one of those things where the mom and the dad, since after they divorced, they didn't really have much to do with each other, and he literally moved to the other side of the country.
Yeah. Hot. So she would probably say, gee, this guy's funny.
Isn't he great?
Don't you wish he was your father? Why do you think from birth she didn't tell you that you were? Was she embarrassed in a sense? Because it was a result of a one-night stand, right?
No, not at all.
It was not. It was an affair.
Yes. And it went on for a few years, but
for a few years. But why do you think she never told you that you're Jerry Lewis's biological daughter? Why not?
Well, I think for the same reason that
she didn't want to stir anything up because Dad was still married to my mom.
Well, of course.
I was going to say, your mother was, in a sense, having an affair. He was cheating on your mother.
Right.
Gary's mother.
Gary, your father used to tell you your whole childhood growing up that he cheated on your mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom used to tell me that the bigger the diamond she got from my dad, the worse the thing is that he did.
So you've got to be angry.
That was such a thing back in those days. I remember there's in the George Burns book, one of his books, he's repeated a couple stories throughout different books. She said something like, she was talking to a friend and she says, oh, I hope George cheats again. I need a new bracelet. So it was just accepted back then that the guys are going to fuck around and the women can't do much about it. But the reverse shouldn't happen.
That's like kind of a fairly new concept if you're looking at the way of the world, that you don't cheat on your wife and stuff. It just seemed, especially in Asian culture, it's like you put on like a happy face and it's like, we're a happy family,
Right.
As long as you for the get-togethers, everything's good on the surface. You can do it whatever you want. Just don't embarrass the family,
Well, the first girl that I nailed when I got out here before I got married was married. I didn't know this. I found out like a couple pictures into the night, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ, what am I doing here? He's probably gonna beat me up or something like that. And she's like, no, he lives in this city and I live here, and like he works in this city, and it was arrangement basically, and I know he's probably fucking around on me, and I do the same. We just don't talk about it with each other, and we just accept it as a thing. And I go, so this must be cultural. This must be something that's just accepted, but you don't talk about it. And she said, yeah. And I then I didn't have any problems with it.
I still would. I just wouldn't want to be involved because it's not gonna. You know what I mean? It's like that it's going to be a problem down the road.
Had I known before I went out with her, I wouldn't have done it because I would have felt like I'd hate to be that guy. Because I wouldn't be philandering if I was that guy to begin with. But once I was through it, I go, well, fuck it. That's his problem, not mine. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's just creepy.
No, I wouldn't feel guilty. I just wouldn't do it because later on down the line, if you get attached to her, then it's going to be a problem. Or B, I've been in that situation, but I just steered clear of it.
Yeah, it's best to do that.
Even a girl that was like still married and still going around or whatever, I just wouldn't put myself in the position. I didn't put myself in that position. Let's say
bad news.
Yeah, with your dad for cheating on your mom. Every son would be. You loved your mother.
Well, yeah. I mean, I love my mom. I mean, I love my dad too. I mean, I've separated myself from all that.
But
I'm not upset with him for doing that. No.
But don't you think in other words, your dad didn't want, for some reason, to give Suzan a DNA test. He didn't want to do it. You stepped forward to give a DNA test.
Right.
Now, I think that's very compassionate. You said, hey, I want Suzan to know who her father is. But you knew it was going to drive your father crazy.
Well, I didn't really care about that, I mean, I believe everybody has the right to know where they came from, and Suzan didn't ask me to do that. It was Inside Edition's idea to get us together and do the DNA test.
And you said, sure, fine.
Sure.
And you didn't care if you pissed your father off.
No, I'd be glad to help Suzan figure it out.
Do you ever count?
And this is why that the theory that like for a lot of people, it's too like tinfoil hat. For when we go on and people say, well, the theory that Beth's niece is her daughter that was adopted by one of her brothers or like as one of their kids and raised, with whatever money. But the age is perfect. Like the age is perfect for him to have fucked around on Allison and sired a kid and then kept that hush hush. Pay them all the kinds of money to do it, keep it out of the radar of the mainstream media. The only two reasons your wife would fucking divorce you is if you fucked around, and if failing that, having a kid with someone else that wasn't going to put it up for adoption.
That did, like the Noelle Eclair or whatever.
Yeah, no,
yeah. She there's that one picture that I always go back to that it's like Wiggy, Noelle and Horse. And she's wearing like these glasses and she looks so much like Howard. There's another picture of that's in his book that says, look at me with serial killer glasses. He looks like one of the Cray twins with the glasses. And she like that picture of her and that picture of Wiggy as a young kid look identical. It's creepy.
But then when she's of age, those pictures of her compared to Emily look identical.
Yeah. Yep.
And I said to myself, like, that's not beyond impossible. That's not beyond the possibility of happening because, like I said, that's something he would absolutely want quiet, same as the fucking around, and he'd have the money to take care of it. That wouldn't be an issue. Allison would keep her mouth shut, and she'd get a guaranteed divorce out of it.
Right. And then there's other things too, like where we've seen her call Beth mom in some points.
Yeah.
That was a slip up. And well, I knew there's another story about a Vietnamese girl that another different one that I worked with. This was just a friend. We'd go to like Star Trek shows and stuff like that together. And this was like before I was married. And so I used to go over her house and she's like, oh, if you come over, and she's like, because she always told me she took care of her niece and nephew. And I was like, yeah, whatever, So, and she's like, oh, well, if they call me mom, they're just used to calling me mom because it's, we lived together for so long.
Right.
And then that's when it clicked in. I'm like, wait a minute now. And forever she was saying she wouldn't go out with me and this other guy that was a year older than me because both of us used to like, oh, come on, Kim, why don't you go out with us,
Right.
And we both wanted her. And she's like, no, you guys are too young. You're too young. And I'm like, you're only a couple of years older than us. Well, she used to lie about her age, that she was a lot older than us.
Yeah.
But she's still, she still looked good because she
And those
was
were
like
her
Asian.
kids?
And those were her kids. Yeah, that's what one day it finally clicked in.
Why wouldn't she admit that they were her kids? Because she didn't want to appear like they were old, like she was that old or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
She had her husband was white, and he was like way older than us, and he was really weird into like, she ended up telling me he was into like S&M and tying he wanted to be tied up and all
David
kinds
Carradine
of
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calculate and say to yourself, if I give Susan the DNA test that my father doesn't want her to have, that he could cut me out of the will.
Oh, sure.
And you don't ever consider the financial bonanza.
A lot of money.
No, I've never, my entire whole life, I have never expected to inherit anything.
Wow.
That's what I was asking. I said,
That's a good
do
thing.
You
I never
even
counted
think
on
you're
any of
in
that.
the will?
Because I don't think he's putting you in. Do you, Robin? I don't think
so.
It's good.
Well, he must have got a message pretty clear to you by 1968. If you knew him helping you get out of war, it was going to hurt you later with it. As far, I mean, like what did he do to let you know that? Like,
And the other thing is, people aren't realizing, after he had a string of failures, he opened up these Jerry Lewis theaters in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was a massive financial loss because the times were changing. He wanted only family-friendly films, and then later on they would have a few R-rated films, but it wasn't, the business was changing, and it wasn't, he just didn't, his films weren't making any money. His own productions were a little over budget all the time, and it was just, he wasn't hot anymore, Jerry, and he needed money. So Dave Thomas said on the Gilbert Gottfried show that he was paid $1 million to do these telethons every year, and he probably needed that money.
See, that's something I never knew that.
I couldn't
never knew
believe that because I believe Dave has no reason to lie about that. But and sure enough, he did work his ass off over those 3 days to make to put together the telethon and stuff and host it. But it's supposed to be a charity event.
Well, what when I was a kid, I used to be like, oh my God, he stays up all night and does that, and then I ended up doing that. How many times did I work like 2 shifts and do that? But what time would it come on? Like at 8 o'clock at night and then run till like maybe 6 o'clock the next day or something? Or?
What, the telethon?
Yeah,
telethon ran for 3 days.
Did it?
Yes, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. And he would just sleep like 6 hours and then come back. And then in the meantime, they'd have other hosts, or they'd throw it to, well, in Canada, we had a couple feeds, including the Canadian version.
Yeah.
And then they would just have other things going on. And I seem to recall it was like 3 days worth. I don't think the telethon was 24 hours.
I thought it was not even 24 hours. I don't know. That's interesting. Maybe
let me check. I have to make sure of this. Okay.
Yeah.
21 and a half hours. Okay. My mistake. Okay. It was not 3 days, but it took over basically 2.5 viewing cycles.
Yeah.
So it might start at like 8 o'clock on Friday, let's say.
Right.
And then it would continue all through Saturday or something like that.
No, Labor Day is always a Monday, so I think it would start on a Sunday and then go to like Monday night about 6 or so. And but yeah, we because the thing that used to be funny is by the end, like you'd see him at the beginning, he was all in like a nice tuxedo, and by the end, it looked like he was like in a fight with Wolverine or something.
Subtly said, by that time you said, look, if I ask my dad to help me possibly get out of being killed in Vietnam, he's going to hold it over my head later. Why did you know that so well? You just knew it from Howard.
Because Howard's the exact same way, and a narcissist will any favor they've done, they're going to count it against you. Any slight you've given them, they're going to remember it forever. And I'm sure Jerry and Howard were 2 peas in a fucking pod that way.
Oh yeah. See, my father told me that if Vietnam, actually when the shit started up in the Gulf War and down in, Afghanistan and all that, when my father was like, oh, if you want to go to Canada, then then go. He backed me, and there was like, he was lucky he didn't have to go to Vietnam because he already had me, and he was Yeah, he got married, so they weren't taking married guys.
Okay.
And then when they started taking married guys, then they had me. And then after that, so and then he was a fireman, so they needed him here to be a fireman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
pulling him away from that.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, I wasn't concerned of how he would have felt. I was concerned on how it was going to affect me later on, how people would look at me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
like
Susan,
a public thing.
Susan, you go, your mother tells you this story, and you go into shock, right? Like, you're like in shock. Wow, my whole world is upside down. The guy I thought was my dad isn't, and now my mom's telling me Jerry, and then you're even saying to yourself, probably, maybe my mom's nuts. She's hallucinating.
No, because growing up, I always said to myself, why can't I look like my mother? She looks like Lana Turner, and I look like her sister, Stomach Turner. I'm like, what is this face?
What a
Where
great
did
joke.
it come from?
Right.
And no offense.
She just said something funny. She said she's funnier in that one joke than Shuli has been his entire career.
Yeah.
And it's true. She does look the spit of Jerry. They're going to show up. They're going to show a graphic here. It's like the facial structure, like the nose, the mouth, the smile.
Yeah.
Particularly the eyes and the smile and the jawline. It's incredible.
To my father, but
By the way, you're not bad looking.
You're not
better
bad
as a
looking.
man, I think.
Right. No,
I
you
know
have his exact face. You have Jerry Lewis's face. There's no question you're
She
Jerry
does.
Lewis's kid.
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put him in drag, that's you straighten his hair out, make it longer. She's got the mouth, the nose. Yeah, it's almost it's frightening.
Look at it, like her chin.
Yeah, and the teeth, the smile. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. The dimple in the chin, everything. So your mom tells you this. You flip out. Eventually, you do get in touch.
Was it called cleft chin?
Yeah, cleft chin, like Captain America.
The dimple in the chin.
Yeah.
With Jerry
Remember,
Lewis, right?
Yeah, it took.
Yeah, go ahead.
Remember in Trainspotting 2 when they did that song up in with the No More Catholics? Did you see that?
I have not seen Trainspotting 2.
Oh, I loved it. It's great. I went to see it twice in the theater. I loved it so much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that there's a line in the song is like on his chin, a royal cleft. Yeah.
Took about from 76 to 80, 4 years.
You kept writing him?
I'm sorry?
Did you keep writing to him? Is that how you got to finally meet him? How did you make contact with him?
No. When my mother told me, I still didn't have contact with him.
Right.
I didn't really think of doing that. And then one day I heard he's in Paris, and I'm like,
You were living there, right?
I lived there for 14 years.
Right.
And I looked down at my son, Jerry Jr. He was 6 months old.
Jerry
You
Jr.
named your son Jerry?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's funny as hell. Like, you got a reminder. Not only have you got the face, you're going to name your kid Jerry Jr. And
That's just
to
weird.
really to rub it into, it's a different thing. If your mother didn't want him in your life, and then all of a sudden you're seeking him out, it's that I don't know that I'd want that connection that way.
Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he really looks like my dad.
Wow.
And he looks like you.
Unbelievable.
He looks in the 20s, when you're in your 20s.
Right.
So I looked down at Jerry Jr. and I said, let's go try to meet your grandfather. What the heck?
Wow. All right.
Now, did your mother ever tell Jerry she was pregnant?
Oh, no, he knew from day one.
Then why would you name your kid Jerry Jr.? Your father, your real biological father, never acknowledged you. He never said, I want to know you. Why do you think psychologically you had to name him Jerry Jr.? Why was this so important to you?
Well, I just wanted to do something that even if I never, had a relationship with him, I just wanted to have
You
a
longed
part
for him
of
to be
it.
connected.
Yeah.
You wanted a connection with your real father.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. That's
And he knew
understandable.
so he knew you existed all these years.
He knew from day one
Wow.
when above the Copacabana, he banged on the bed 3 times when he realized, oops. And at the hospital, my mother said, I want to name her Oops, but they said, we don't know how to spell it. So,
So you
And then Milton Berle comes along and says, I don't know how to spell Oops either. Let's call her Susan.
So you were a mistake, and that is a hard thing to even.
Jerry didn't mean to.
Yeah. Jerry didn't wear rubber.
Drop his left hair.
Jerry dropped his.
One thing I wasn't aware of, even though I was always aware of the story, in Roger Daltrey's autobiography, which I wholeheartedly recommend. I didn't think it would be any good, and I got it anyway, and it's way better than the Pete Townsend book.
Yeah, I read it.
where he acknowledges that he has a couple of illegitimate kids that came into his life later on from the results of one night stands, and that he had an open relationship with his wife Heather. Basically said, look, I'm on the road and it's going to happen. We got urges, whatever. I'm a rock star and this happens, and I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. So let's not hold each other to a certain standard. And he said he gets along great with the kids. Like after they come into his life, he's like, well, welcome to the extended family. And that doesn't always happen. The only other person I knew who did that in the business that seemingly made it work was Telly Savalas. Telly Savalas had multiple ex-wives, loads of kids. And he said when they said when he would go on vacation with the new wife and the new kids, he'd bring his old wife and the kids, his ex-wife or ex-wives and the kids, to make it a big, like he was the big circle they all rotated around.
Well, it's good that the two wives ended up getting along.
They said that the new wife said, look, it's important to Telly that you are part of the family, and so it's important to me. It's incredible. I'd never heard that in my life. How many times you see the ex going on vacation with, the former, with the other ex and the new woman.
Well, the new wife is must be very well grounded and very secure in her role.
Well, yeah, and I guess it was one of those things where his will was so strong, like he just decided, you know what, it's I'm going to be big about this, and I'm going to say this is not normal, but we're going to make it the new normal.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that
about Telly.
No, never heard that.
Incredible stuff.
Load and there you go. So in other words, now so when you went over to the concert with Jerry Jr.
Yeah. No, I went to his hotel.
When you went to his hotel, did he allow you to come visit him?
Well, I didn't ask. I just went over to the concierge and I said, est-ce que Monsieur Louis est là? Je voudrais bien le voir. Je suis une partie de sa famille. And
what does that mean?
What was that?
Where's Jerry Lewis?
She basically asks, "Is Jerry Lewis here? I'm the member of his family," and she's raised in France. Her French is flawless, but her English is flawless as well. Her English is perfect.
Yeah, and I didn't know
accent.
that. Well, she said it earlier that she was raised in France, but you wouldn't hear it. You don't hear it.
She doesn't. She doesn't sound like this. She doesn't. How you say?
Yeah.
That
she doesn't sound like those puppets at the beginning of Team America.
There you go.
He answered, "Il est pas là. Il revient tout à l'heure." Oh, you mean in English? Oh.
Yes. What does it mean? In other words, Jerry, he let you into his room.
I said the concierge told her that he was there.
Oh, look at you.
Oh,
Miss 34. I didn't say that, but how do you understand that?
I took.
You're wrong, Robin. She said he's not there, but he'll be coming back soon. Robin knows everything.
Robinswrong.com.
Well, I think it was Takei said like she speaks like restaurant French. She doesn't speak French. Langford was bilingual, but Langford was bilingual because he's French Canadian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But look at the retention.
Very good.
It sounds like Jerry's a 36, by the way.
Yeah. So you got into Jerry's room.
Yes, because the concierge, I told him I'm a member of the family, and I waited in the lobby because he was coming back from shopping.
Right.
And when he came back, I see him walking over to me, and
wow.
At first I saw he knew who I was, just in his face.
Sure.
I'm very,
Right. Well, it's like looking in the mirror. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very perceptive. And but then, just like in drama and comedy, I saw the face change.
Uh-oh.
And he said, I'm sorry, the concierge said you're a member of the family? How is that? And I said, well, I'm your daughter. I'm Lynn Yucatel's daughter. And he said, I don't know that name. And I started crying instantly. I said, Lynn, you could tell, Lynn Dixon, the different names she had used back then? No. And I started crying because my mother's word meant everything.
Gary, you're starting to smile during this. Is that because this is the father you know?
Oh, yeah.
Has this happened before?
Artie's laugh was punctuated perfectly.
See, actually, Wiggy's. This is a pretty good interview for Wiggy to pick up on that.
Yeah, and the well, I mean, Jesus Christ, it's just as obvious as anybody can see, but eh, it's in the business when there are illegitimate kids involved or when there are multiple wives and stuff, it can get so tricky. Like all these guys, including Gary Lewis, sorry, I keep getting that mistake and making that easy mistake because of the Phophonics. He left nothing to his first wife's kids. So this Gary got nothing in Jerry's will. But then think of James Brown. James Brown had a bunch of kids with a different marriage, and he left everything to his last wife and his last kid. And that was a shit move, in my opinion. But, fuck, these guys are weird that way.
That's kind of common. A lot of them do that. The new kids. I mean, people were worried about that with with Julian Lennon. Julian Lennon kind of got screwed with Sean got the mother load. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not right, and it was because, and there was a famous quote from John Lennon. It was, I think, the Playboy interview he did before he died. He said, Julian was born out of a bottle of whiskey on a Saturday night. He said he was a Saturday night special, and so was I. Yeah. Like most of us around the world were not planned. It doesn't mean I love him any less. It just means that, the difference was I planned Sean, and this was whatever. And I think that's a shitty tag to stick on your kid who had no choice in the matter.
Well, he was, when he was with May Pang, she was very involved with Julian. She's still friends with him to this day. Yeah. And, I watched the documentary about May Pang, and, Julian's in it a lot. And he's in the documentary. And I think it's kind of sad that, that Yoko wasn't like a Telly Savalas, where she didn't include Julian.
No, or Cynthia for that matter.
Right.
Like, just to be like, let bygones be bygones, this happened, whatever.
Yeah,
and John Lennon was a shithead. Like, he really, that doesn't take away from his talent and all that, but ultimately the way he did that was just, he was a cad, he was a fucking dick, and he was a dick to Yoko too. Not that I care about her, but he was not, he was like his own different type of Jerry Lewis. And Sean and Julian apparently get along, which is interesting because that doesn't always happen. But he's also a lot older, so he's like a massively big brother. But his interviews, if you ever see see Julian Lennon in interviews, if you ever read them or see him, he's actually very well mannered. His mother must have done a great job with him, and he's not bitter about much.
No, he's back. I think he's back around right now for something. I'm not sure what it is because I've heard his name being brought up recently. I've seen him live, and I always liked Julian. I thought he was like really class act. But the other thing with John, you got to remember where John came from. Liverpool was pretty cutthroat, and it's just like a working class, kind of thing where he just repeated the same thing his father did. And, that's just the way it is. So
Artie told a story about he spotted Julian Lennon making out with a girl in some club in New York, while there was a picture of John Lennon just above him. He said it was the freakiest fucking thing. I mean, total like, not serendipity, but I guess just fluke that would be there, but it was. And he said it was the most, he said it was creepy in a way.
When I was a kid, I hated Sean because I remember him running around with one of those Dawn Post Darth Vader helmets. Those things were like wicked expensive, and I was like, oh, that jealous. Sucks. He has one of those, and I don't. And I hated him. And then I saw him, like, he was playing with Yoko Ono when I saw Yoko and in the band, and I was kind of like, I don't feel jealous at him at all. It's like she's like so much in his life. And then he was with the girl from Cito Mato. Remember that group, Cibo Mato?
Vaguely.
And little by little, it's like he got out there. It's like, I got no beef with Sean. He's fine,
No, yeah.
Yeah.
This to you? I don't know you.
By the way, Gary, you had to realize, Gary, that this was no surprise to you that he had an illegitimate kid. Had you figured he probably had one out there somewhere?
Well, I think Suzan's probably one of 50.
Oh, okay. That's the thing. There's another guy, who's claiming.
Does it make you sad to hear that about your father? That hear the girls in tears, and he does obviously know the mother. Do you think he should have just said, "Hey, Okay, yeah. Do you think he was nervous that she was looking for something, for money or something like that? Maybe he was uptight about that.
Oh, that's what I think he thinks.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And Gary and Jerry not being so rich anymore, that's a big concern, I suppose, to some of these guys. But let me see if I can find that Telly Savalas interview thing. It's from a documentary. It was an A&E thing. It's old, but it's still quite good. And his one daughter, Christina, is really cute in that. I can't remember. Telly Savalas documentary. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know much about him. I mean, I know he was Blofeld and I know he was Kojak, and that's about it.
I'm Drummond.
So we're going to play a little of this, guys, just to give you an idea of what I was talking about.
Family. It defined Telly. It was part of being Greek, and it was part of being a Savalas. For his kids and wives, Telly was the hub of a giant wheel, keeping them connected by centrifugal force.
I remember when we went to New York, we'd stay at Catherine's house, his first wife's house, and that's not customary that the children of the second wife stay in the home of the first wife.
When I did finally meet my new stepmother, the first thing she said to me was that it was very important to my father that I be a part of this new family and that we feel like family, and we do.
In 1968, Telly's family joined him in Switzerland.
So he was doing, he was filling James Bond at that time. They was doing the On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But when I saw that, I was like, well, I was blown away because, like I said, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, one of the daughters kind of looked like a Linda Ronstadt type. She's pretty cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But Susan doesn't want money, doesn't want anything like that.
Right.
And my dad's not married to my mom anymore. So
what's the hang up?
Yeah,
might as well. Well, I think I know.
What do you know?
Well, he's old school. Hasn't changed a day. He's old Hollywood, old school. He actually, I can just tell that he must feel, well, I have this new family. You know, I don't want to ruin that in any way. Maybe my adopted daughter's going to feel bad. So if I just say no comment, that takes care of it.
But here's a guy who, Jerry's kids, he's a compassionate guy, a charitable guy, I guess, or unless that's just for shtick, just to be a good guy to the public. Here's a girl. This is literally Jerry's kid. And you're there, and you're crying, and you're saying, are you my father? I need to know. Wouldn't he be the first one to go on TV and talk about his horrible childhood, and my father wouldn't acknowledge me?
I never got the feeling that Jerry was bullshitting about caring about the muscular dystrophy stuff.
No, the only thing was he got flack years later for the depiction of Jerry's kids and how he used to the whole expression Jerry's kids. It was patronizing and that kind of thing. But I'm like, that dude was he literally raised $1 billion for muscular dystrophy research. And I never thought of it. No, I think it was something that got bigger than Jerry actually. And it's funny the way that telethon just sort of stopped mattering. You know, like it used to be must-watch viewing when we were younger, and then I guess like everything else, it had a shelf life, and then you couldn't get really many big stars on it anymore, and that was the key, and that was the turning point. Too many things competing with it in any given Labor Day weekend.
But I think the other thing too is the variety show that variety show TV
died out.
Doesn't exist anymore.
No.
I think Donnie and Marie might have been the last.
I mean,
Pink
there were
Lady
a few.
Pink Lady and Jeff.
in the States, it died earlier than in Canada. In Canada, it was still very much a thing with some certain artists, but then you guys wouldn't know about it except on YouTube most of the time. But yeah, that format was dying, and then also I think people just decided, fuck this. We've given enough money. It's time for another charity. I don't know.
No, what I was thinking the other day, it's kind of a totally dead thing is tap dancing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not that I care, but it's just like, no, you never see tap dancing unless it's like a callback to like an old time. So like La La Land or something like that,
And you would think he would feel some compassion for you.
But that doesn't take the place of being old-fashioned and wanting to keep his little family
intact.
And
without an intruder.
Right, and even back then, he was I'm sure he was thinking that way.
So your first encounter was you left in tears, and you were like, okay, he denied this. So
No, we spent a whole really nice day together.
You're kidding?
No, I didn't get to that part.
After you're crying,
Yeah, well, that got to him, obviously.
Okay, that's good.
And he said, well, come upstairs with me, and the baby was with me.
Right.
And we spent the whole afternoon. He was running back and forth because he had the newspaper people in the living room. It was a big suite. And he kept running back and forth and saying, you okay? Let's call your mom, And we called my mother, and he talked to her.
I thought he didn't know her. But then he broke down. When he broke down, he said he did know her.
Oh, of course.
He
he was hugging me and everything.
I think he just didn't want like a scene. He decided better shut her up, and like that sounds more likely the situation.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to stop it right there for now. We're going to continue with part 2 in the next little while. We hope you've enjoyed this one. Wayne, is it going to making you seek out like Rockabye Baby or anything?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Rockabye Baby was one of his early films before he got big.
Yeah.
I think Connie Stevens was in that one.
Yeah. Do you remember there was a show that was you might have had it in Canada? It was called Bonkers with the Hudson Brothers. And Connie Stevens was on that. Yeah, it was like a really weird show called Bonkers with the Hudson Brothers. If any of the QF people remember it other than me, I actually have all these shows recorded on cassette.
Guys, I can't even think of a dedication for this one. Have you got one?
Yeah, I was thinking on doing something for David Johansen since he just passed.
Yeah.
And so, but not like I was thinking of like doing like Melody or Sohita Woman or something like that. Not the typical New York Dolls. And I don't like Buster Poindexter stuff. But.
Same. But guys, we hope you've enjoyed this one. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
I don't say pasta asciutta, I say pasticcio. Pasta, that's what I say. He's a phony Italian, Paul. Who's Italian? Yeah. Why, you're Napolitano? I'm Napolitano. Sure. You don't understand Sicilia. I'm Tovilla. No, Tovilla. Nessuna me l'ha mangiata. Sì, ma te l'ha mangiata tu. Nessuna me l'ha mangiata, ragazza. L'ha mangiata. È stupata pesata che vado. Perché Peppe le pempe le porta.